Commissioners, good afternoon. It is now 5:30.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to our pre-commission work session. And we were going to kick off with our first item, the Collister Drive, State Street, Hill Road Public Outreach and Concept Study, presentation by staff, and this is information only. And we welcome Brooke Green, who will be making the presentation. Welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be in front of you this evening. We'll get the presentation up and going. All right. Well, good evening. For the record, Brooke Green, the Transportation Planner within Projects and Planning. This evening, I will be providing an informational briefing on the Collister Drive Public Outreach and Concept Study. The purpose of this evening's presentation is primarily to introduce ACHG's approach for engaging the Collister Drive Neighborhood Association and neighborhoods in the coming months following this presentation. We'll talk, in the next slides, I'll talk primarily about our approach and what you can anticipate what will occur from the months of January into next October. The planning area will be Collister Drive, no further north than Hill Road and no further south than State Street. We do have a elementary school within the vicinity of Collister Drive, and it's a Collister Elementary School. The project purpose has two purposes. One is to facilitate the public outreach that clarifies the neighborhood's vision for possible enhancement. The second purpose is to prepare a concept study for Collister Drive from State Street to Hill Road that is in alignment with the neighborhood vision. The second concept study will only occur at the commission direction. I'll go into further detail here in a moment. Why Collister? We have actually visited with Collister in the past. 2011 was our first approach in identifying pedestrian projects and pedestrian facilities for Collister. However, in 2011, after the initial outreach, it was canceled at the direction of the commission. We did go back several times since then to visit the Collister neighborhood as well as adjacent neighboring streets to identify what would be appropriate. We went back in 2015 and we conducted the Northwest Boise Neighborhood Bike and Pedestrian Plan, where within the plan there was actually recommended concepts and treatments for Collister. We did go back in 2018, that was with the Bike Master Plan update, where we did identify bike facilities specifically for Collister. In 2019, as well as in 2020, the City of Boise did identify Collister Drive as their number 10th request within their integrated 5-year work plan request. Our project approach, it's very, very important as we approach the Collister neighborhood that this time we get it right. We're going to go in there and listen first. We want to engage the neighborhood to determine what improvements do the residents as well as the neighborhood want to see. We'll have several commission check-ins, and as I mentioned earlier, we will be coming back to the commission after we've completed phase 1, which is our listening phase. We will come back to the commission to seek approval to proceed with a full concept. Throughout this approach, we are going to have several facilitated discussions, primarily with working groups there at the resident level, but also recognize that Collister does have a broader impact, and we will be engaging with the public through several public meetings. Recognizing that we do have some COVID constraints, a lot of this will take place virtually and will take place in the spring months. Ultimately, it's can we find a collaborative approach and find collaborative solutions to actually meet the needs of the Collister neighborhood. Our next steps, as I mentioned, April through May will be our public outreach effort, and much of that will be conducted virtually. In June, should we receive commission approval, we will move forward in the months of the summer, June, July, and August, with a concept study, and I anticipate coming back before you in the month of October for consideration of the concept study. This was a very, very brief presentation as it pertains to Collister, and that does conclude my presentation. I will stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Brooke. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Brooke?
Yes, Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Sure. Back on to highlight my memory. What kind of bicycle facilities or pedestrian facilities were we contemplating earlier?
As in 2011? Commissioner Goldthorpe?
No, since then.
Madam President and Commissioner Goldthorpe, we actually have not identified what specific treatments we will be applying to Collister. It's really important that the neighborhood provides that vision, and then we will move forward to a concept study. We are going into this with a blank slate, and everything is on the table. So I hesitate to say, will it be level 2, level 3, or will it be sidewalks? We really want the neighborhood to lead that conversation and follow it up with a concept study shortly after.
Okay, I just remember some of the comments that we received against any kind of facilities at all from the neighborhoods, and I'm hoping that that it is not our intent to cave in on that any longer, because there's an elementary school there, there's kids and pedestrian safety to take into consideration, and away we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Goldthorpe.
Madam President?
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I kind of have to tend to disagree with Kent Goldthorpe there. I would assume that if the neighborhood is still against any facilities, you're not going to, hopefully staff is not going to come back to the commission and say, well, we're going to go over their heads anyway, because that's what Boise did. Boise tried to shove this down the public's throat, and they didn't want anything to do with it, and we listened to the public, and I don't think we should be, in the future, if they don't want facilities, I don't think it should be shoved down their throat. They live there, so they should have some say, and that's the problem. That has been the problem with ACHD in the distant past, is that they didn't listen, and I thought we got away from that, so hopefully into the future we'll also continue to listen.
Thank you. And I think that's the objective here, to just listen first and see what the appetite is out there. So,
right, but
yeah.
If they choose not to, then the thing on the list that says commission approval to proceed, I don't know what this, I can't remember what the slide said earlier, but it kind of gave the impression that that was a done deal, and I don't think it should ever be considered a done deal.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Brooke?
Madam President,
Commissioner Hanson.
I just want to thank you, Brooke. This is great. I appreciate that listening sessions will be first. I also note that the timing, starting in April, will be after the commission and the staff has reviewed and started to develop level of service tools for bicycle and pedestrian. So those kind of tools weren't available in the past, and I'm confident that there can be a context-sensitive version, not just a generic version of sidewalks, developed that really meets the needs. I think the blueprint we did in Kootenai is a good example of how very context-sensitive we're becoming, and with these new tools. So I really appreciate the work you're doing and the listening sessions in the spring. Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. Any other questions or comments for Brooke? All right, hearing none. Brooke, we look forward to what you find out when you start doing your outreach efforts, and look forward to having you come back and updating us. Thank you. Awfully good to see you.
It was good to see you guys as well. Thank you.
All right, next on our list, capital maintenance programming approach, presentation by staff, and we will hear from Mr. Ryan Head. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you, President May, Commission. It's my pleasure today to present to you a refined approach, an information briefing on a refined approach staff has begun taking with regards to our capital maintenance program. Today I'm going to present to you a little bit about how we identify these needs, and then how we've been doing this, and where we have begun changing in that approach, as well as talk to you about a few of the implications related to that. So really in identifying needs, staff takes a look and maintains an inventory of the condition of the pavement. The Commission has more than $2 billion worth of asphalt that's out there on the roads, or the public does. And so staff takes a detailed approach at the direction of the Commission to really emphasize making sure that stays in good condition. The first and primary way that we identify needs is we take a look at the pavement. Our pavement management team maintains an inventory of the pavement condition index, as you've recently heard about. We do geotechnical studies, and that really helps us identify what is going on in those areas. And that is the primary driver and will continue to be the primary driver behind our capital maintenance. But as we look at a road, we may see that there are additional needs there. And so just hypothetically, as we look at this road example here, we may have, obviously we have some need from the pavement. There may be some fading in the striping. There may be places where curb ramps have been improved through development, but other places where they haven't. There may be driveways that are not compliant with the ADA at this point in time, and there may be some gaps in the sidewalk. So historically, as we've looked at this, what we've done is really, again, focused on that pavement first. And we've gone in, we've rehabilitated the asphalt, and in accordance with federal guidelines, we've improved all the curb ramps associated and connected to that. We've replaced any pipe in the area that runs under the road. We want to make sure that we get that repaired at the same time, and obviously we've restriped. But the projects really have not included any level of right-of-way acquisition, and so that's allowed us to be expedient in completing projects, but it also has some shortfalls in that approach. As you note, nothing was in this diagram, nothing was done about the driveways, and that pedestrian gap still is there. Well, taking a look at the plans that the Commission has adopted, and looking at the desire for really enhancing the system and taking advantage of expedient delivery of projects, staff has identified an integrated maintenance approach that as we go in and we look at that, using that current approach, still improving the asphalt, still improving those curb ramps, that there are other improvements that we could be making at the same time. This is just an example of some things, and I'll go over the criteria and the things that we've looked at. But this may be in our bike master plan a location for a low stress bikeway, and we may be able to go in there at the same time, add the striping and add the signage that could be included. In our neighborhood plans, there could have been a pedestrian crossing identified, and so the intent is that we would look and identify that ahead of time so that as we are in there doing the maintenance that we could install that at the same time. The other thing that's always interesting about what we've been doing, and this really was always in compliance with federal law, was we've improved these curb ramps, but in between you may have those driveways that are not accessible. So one of the things that we are recommending and have begun doing is identifying the high priority curb or sidewalks that have driveways in them, that we could be making those improvements at the same time to really make at the end of the project to make it fully accessible. There also may be those that gap where we were able to fill in connection with the project. It may be something that it may be an interim treatment because there may be a more full improvement coming in the future, or it may just be a final design where we complete the sidewalk that way. Really, the reason why we began looking at this is we recognize the Commission's increased emphasis on accessibility. We know in the adoption of our plan that there's a desire and there's a schedule there for trying to get care of those high priorities first. And we see this as an opportunity to address that, as well as that increased focus on filling those key sidewalk gaps. But ultimately, ACHD has a complete streets policy that indicates that when we build, rebuild, or maintain a roadway, we will look at the needs of all users. Really, we see this as an opportunity to fully embrace that policy and begin to make those improvements all at the same time. So what are the things that we've looked at? So, first and foremost, we're looking at the high priority sidewalks identified through our ADA transition plan inventory. The key pedestrian gaps, and really, I want to make this clear in what we're intending here. The intent is not every road that we do maintenance on, we're going to add a sidewalk. What we're saying is there are key places where there are gaps. These would be an arterial that has gaps on it, a collector that has gaps on on both sides of the road, or a local street where the traffic volume is higher. We see or near the schools and other facilities. We see those as really high priority gaps that we should be filling. And so we see those as an opportunity to bring that into play. And these would be gaps that have been identified already. As far as bikeway signage, using the Bike Master Plan, there are low stress networks out there that adding signage into the project is a real quick and easy win, and can help expedite that as has been requested. There's also opportunities for crossing improvements. Again, really these would be derived out of our neighborhood plans, where there have been bulb outs or enhanced signals that have been identified by the neighborhood that they'd like to see, that we could work together. It is a challenge sometimes to install some of those without the maintenance connected to it, to deal with some of the drainage. So doing it together is a good opportunity. And then there are some other opportunities like bike shoulders, where in the more rural areas where it's going to be a long time before we make any improvement out there, that we can at least widen the asphalt to provide a place for bicyclists to have that operational space, or where we're having some congestion currently, that there may be a turn pocket or something else we can do in widening the asphalt within the right-of-way, or with a little bit of additional right-of-way that would help alleviate that, knowing that the full improvement may not be for some days down the road. But ultimately what we're looking at is your adopted plans to really drive this discussion. So just some key considerations. Obviously, in acquiring and improving driveways and making crossings or adding sidewalk, there will likely be some right-of-way acquisition. That's not been included in the past in our maintenance activities. And so in doing that, that will ultimately make a longer project development time. That will also require more public outreach. We want to reach out to the public and make sure that they're aware that this project's coming and what improvements we're planning to make there. And of course, that does increase the cost and staff burden, but staff believes that in doing this, there's a lot of efficiency that's going to be had and may have some savings for the district in the long run. You take that capital maintenance and you make it a complete capital project, but it really is there's value added in doing that, and really answers that question to the public of why are you here multiple times when we can be there just once. So really as the next steps, we are planning to implement this approach. We've already started doing that in the last integrated 5-year work plan. We set aside some funds for some of these enhancement activities in the outer years of our maintenance activities, the ones that haven't been designed yet, so that we can fund these through our programs. And then we'll ensure that the projects in the integrated 5-year work plan are fully described so the public knows what's coming. And we'll return to you with some review of the financial impact. We want to show you briefly the analysis that was done, taking and filtering through all of those different things to show you which segments would meet that criteria. So staff created this map using all the maintenance segments that are that we have, and said which one of those at least hit one of those triggers. Do they have a key gap? Do they have bikeway signage? Do they have a crossing, etc.? That's been identified in one of our planning documents. And what this allows is us to come in and see, so all of these that are red at least meet one of those triggers. It doesn't mean they meet all of them, but they meet one. And so we can see as staff, as we look at one of these, we can see what's going on in that area. So this is 20th Street from Lemp to Irene. In this case, there's a priority ADA sidewalk there. So when we go in, that's what we would be looking to add into the maintenance activity. But this is just a tool that we would continue to update to help facilitate that. We also note in here when they're selecting the segments, those that are planned to already be improved, just so we know that if they're picking that segment, they may be able to pick those and do the maintenance at the same time that we're already planning to improve them. Really, the goal is efficiency and expediency in really getting the projects delivered. With that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
All right, Ryan, thank you very much. I like this. I like the proactivity. I like the fact, and I agree with you, I think in the long run, it'll be more economical in the end, and certainly less disruptive than going back in and ripping out again and having that disruption. So I like this. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
Yes, Madam President. I'm thinking the same thing.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
I appreciate it very much, and thanks for all that work, Ryan and your staff, and for the direction that got you there.
Thank you.
Absolutely agree. Thank you.
Madam
Any
President?
further questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, I also want to thank you, Ryan. This is great. I know our past discussions about the about capital maintenance projects and opportunities have really led to fruition, and I really like this. You mentioned like bulb out. I would suggest we should probably be more explicit about including an assessment of the need for traffic calming and whether, in listening to the neighborhood, they have a perception of speeding on these streets. Because I know we can sort of look at it all and look at the map and see where there's gaps and non-compliant crosswalks. But I would suggest there has to be some phase where we should listen to the neighborhood. Okay, and in constructing these sidewalks, what can we do if there's a perception of speeding that they don't feel safe, even along a sidewalk, or there's a crosswalk that needs to be built? Is there a way in which we could anticipate, okay, this is going to be an area that is going to need some traffic calming, so let's incorporate those. And so that sort of that next phase, kind of like what Brooke's talking about, let's make sure we listen to the neighborhood and see, is this something that's going to really work for you? So I love this, and I would just suggest in the language as you're doing the analysis to include reference to the need for traffic calming. And typically, as far as I can tell, all of our traffic calming projects have required no additional right-of-way. So they're not a right-of-way acquisition issue. It's really a design issue, you know, shortening up the crossing distance, for example, between two compliant ADA ramps, et cetera. So those kinds of things which could be easily incorporated. But if we don't sort of think about that or ask the neighborhood as we're doing that, we might miss out. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Brian, thank you very much. Appreciate your efforts. Kudos to you and your team. All right, that was our last segment. It looks like we've got about 8 minutes until we start. So don't go far.
Commissioner May, would you like to,
Thanks again, Ryan.
Commissioner May, would you like to just
go
go
right.
over the agenda?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Sorry, I was just going right full speed right into the meeting. All right, our pre-commission agenda. Any general housekeeping? Questions, concerns? All right, the agenda. Director Wong.
Yes, Commissioners, again, good afternoon. We would like to request that you defer consent item number 5 back to the staff indefinitely. Our legal teams here and in Kuna are still working on a couple of details, crossing T's, dotting the I's on that issue. I believe we'll have it done shortly, but I'd ask for just an indefinite so that they don't come back to you over and over again on this issue.
Madam President,
Commissioner Baker.
but we're still going to go ahead with number 4,
Yeah,
which is adopting their urban renewal plan.
yes, Commissioner May, Commissioner Baker, yes, we are ready to go forward. The resolution specifically stipulates that the agreement is instrumental in final determinations on this. We're good to go on that. We're just holding up that last
Okay.
piece. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, Director Wong.
Okay.
Do you have any other updates?
I do have 3. First off, I want to remind the Commission that you have a joint session tomorrow with Boise. It starts at 1 o'clock. You have all been given the information, as has the Boise Council. Of note, Mayor McLean and Councilmember Clegg will be in the auditorium here. they have to be in position where the meeting is being taken. So we are taking all the appropriate planning actions to support them being here tomorrow. And then I'd like just to review with you, as you know, on 1 October we started a little more aggressive fining for traffic control issues across the board. And to date, from 1 October, we've received $17,350 in penalties and have assessed another $9,000 for failure in ADA and traffic control violations. We're averaging about $9,000 per week in fines. Our hope is that this is making an impact on our team member or construction partners who are not paying attention, and so, but we are using those dollars when they come in. They're going to the general fund, and from the general fund, we'll be allocating those as they come in regarding community programs, ADA, assisting or helping to pay for our ADA coordinator and an inspector and other ADA specific actions. And as we get through the year, we'll keep updating you on how many dollars, where it's gone, and then of course if you have any other direction for us on that, we'll make sure that's enacted. For the small cell license update, so far we have 140 sites are installed with 112 5G antennas, 95 additional that have approved construction drawings, and 110 additional sites are in the pre-application phase. And then finally, there was an article in one of the papers yesterday regarding Kootenai County. Kootenai County has put a vehicle registration fee on the ballot for this year for adding an additional $50 and such for cars under 8,000 pounds, vehicles under 8,000 pounds, and $25 for motorcycles. We've taken a look at the social media public response to that at this point, and right now it's not very supportive for what people are writing in. But what's interesting, according to the article, Kootenai County's road system has not been updated since President Nixon resigned. And so it's been a while. So we'll watch that to see how that turns out for them here next week. So with that, Commissioners, that's my update for the day. And you have about 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. We closed that gap a little bit, sorry. We were going full speed ahead. Thank you, Director Wong.
Commissioners, good evening. It is now 6 o'clock.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome to the October 28th ACHD Commission meeting. Director Wong, if you'd please lead us in the pledge.
If you'll all stand and follow me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America,
to the republic
and to the
for which it
republic
stands,
for which it stands,
one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under
indivisible,
God,
with liberty and
indivisible,
justice
with
for all.
liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. All right, this evening, we want to recognize Valerie Anderson. She's ACHD's General Equipment Operator, and we are recognizing her for her outstanding work on ensuring Ada County's roads continue to be rated as the best in Idaho and in the top tier in the Northwest. Valerie is well known as the expert when it comes to ensuring ACHD's patchwork for potholes and road impacts are at the A+ level. Her unwavering focus on perfection and her commitment to ACHD is exemplary. Of note, Valerie also celebrated a birthday yesterday. So please join me in thanking Valerie for a job well done and in wishing her a very happy birthday. All right, thank you. Commissioners, our first item on the agenda is to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
Is
Second.
there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move approval of the consent agenda and that item 5 be remanded back to staff indefinitely.
All right,
Second.
we have a motion. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, our first item this evening on our regular agenda is the 2020 Master Street Map Update Adoption, request for adoption. We will hear first from Edinson Bautista.
Good evening, Commissioner. I'll start by sharing my screen. Can everyone see my screen just fine?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Good evening, Commission. My name is Edinson Bautista, ACHD Senior Transportation Planner. In today's meeting, staff will present the proposed amendment to the Master Street Map, including an overview of the updating process, outcome, and staff recommendations. Staff is completing the process and recommends the adoption of Resolution 2324, approving the Master Street Map as amended. The Master Street Map was originally adopted on January 27, 2010, and last amended on May 16, 2018. The Master Street Map update is conducted on a biannual basis or every 2 years. The Master Street Map complies with Idaho Code Section 676517, Future Acquisition Map, which recommends the adoption of a map to designate the land proposed for acquisition. The three primary purposes are: define a shared vision of a future roadway network between ACHD and its partner agencies, establish a county-wide right-of-way preservation map, and establish an existing and future collector network map. The Master Street Map helps establish a vision for projects in both the Integrated Fire Work Plan and the Capital Improvement Plan. ACHD policy establishes two amendment procedures for the Master Street Map. One is through the ACHD Standard Development Review process, which is the vehicle of processing and commenting on requests to amend the Master Street Map associated with new development. Second is through a large-scale city or county-initiated comprehensive plan change or sub-area plans. Within this procedure, policy establishes step-by-step procedures that lead either to the approval or denial of the master stream modification. Changes identified through this procedure become effective upon approval of the ACAC Commission, and these changes are not constrained to the update 2-year cycle. For this master stream update, staff identified key tasks throughout the process and separated them into phases. These phases included internal meetings, external meetings with the city and county staff, presentations to committees like the CICAC and CDAC, and analysis through the capital improvement plan process. Staff provided updates to the Commission at key points during each phase, providing a summary of the analysis as well as highlighting staff recommendations. Since the 2018 update to the Master Street Map, the ACAC Commission adopted the 2018 Roadways to Bikeway Plan Addendum. The addendum identified bicycle facility types that were not previously envisioned as part of the roadway network, including buffer, protected, raised and cycle tracks, and multi-use pathways. In response to Commission direction, during phase 1 of the Master Stream update, staff reviewed the right-of-way requirements of these bike treatments. The outcome of the analysis identified a need of additional 4 feet of right-of-way for the implementation of the enhanced bike facilities. This increase would be applied to corridors not built out and has identified in the bike network map. For example, the Lake Hazel corridor. The stakeholder outreach process resulted in the identification of 70 minor proposed modifications, including review and update of the collector network, roundabout network, and roadway topology, and 4 major changes which are consistent with the adopted capital improvement plan. All proposed modifications were included as part of the staff report. Through the stakeholder outreach effort, staff coordinated with the city of Boise, Meridian, Eagle, Kuna, City of Star, Garden City, and Ada County staff to identify modifications to the Master Stream Map. These modifications were reviewed and discussed as part of this process. Additional meetings took place as new requests were received and reviewed. Also, staff presented to the CICAC and CDAC at key points through the update process. All input was reviewed with key ACAC staff, including development and technical services and planning staff. On July 9th, ACAC received a letter from the City of Boise City Council requesting additional modification, which includes the addition of the roundabouts at Lake Hazel Road in Apple Street and Lake Hazel and Amex Road. Review of the planned number of lanes at Warm Spring Avenue from Wiseway to Eckert Road, and the addition of Mitchell Street extension north and south of Amity Road. After review of this request, ACAC staff included the addition of the identified roundabouts as part of this year's Master Stream amendments. The Mitchell extension requests do not conform with prior approvals by ACAC regarding the planned development in these areas, and therefore are not recommended for inclusion at this moment. Regarding Warm Spring Avenue, staff will provide more detailed information in the following slides. The Warm Spring Avenue extension from Wiseway to Eckert Road was identified in the 2007 Harris Ranch Specific Area Plan and incorporated into the Master Street Map in 2010. In 2012 and 2014, ACAC Commission heard and approved modifications to the Specific Area Plan. Specific to this segment, it identified key dates and thresholds for the construction of the Warm Spring Avenue realignment and intersection improvements, including the construction of an interim 2-lane section at Warm Spring and single-lane roundabouts. Additionally, changes to the traffic impact study process were approved for the Specific Area Plan, which includes the submittal of a TIS after the development of 200 lots or more, or every 5 years. In 2016, a traffic impact study was submitted to ACHD, and the findings were consistent with the 2014 Harris Ranch TIS, where Warm Spring Avenue will need to be widened to 5 lanes in the future. In the staff report, staff highlights that all improvements recommended in the traffic impact study should be verified with future TIS updates. This will ensure the improvements are constructed with warrants and necessary to serve the site. In July 2020, the City of Boise requested ACHD the reduction of the number of travel lanes from 5 to 3 on Warm Spring Avenue, from Boise to Eckert, and reduce the associated roundabouts to a single lane facility. The city or the developer have not submitted an updated TIS or documentation to show that the roadway will function as a 3-lane roadway.
Thank you.
Following ACHD policy, the Master Street Map Amendment established a process for changes based on specific area plans like the Harris Ranch Specific Area Plan. ACHD staff recommends a traffic impact study to evaluate the need for the area of Warm Spring and update to the specific area plan before its implementation to the Master Street Map. The changes identified through the TIS will be presented to the Commission, and upon approval, the modifications become effective and can be incorporated into the Master Street Map. Changes to the Master Street Map are not constrained to the two-year cycle. The city request for the reduction of the planned number of lanes on Warm Spring Avenue has not been supported in previously completed traffic impact studies. Staff recommends that prior to further consideration of this request, the city provide an updated TIS. The Master Street Map provides ACHD with a clear strategy for right-of-way to be preserved for future build-out of the roadway system. By preserving for future needs through development, ACHD is able to construct needs improvement at a lower cost and with less disruption than would occur if the right-of-way was not preserved. Any projects to build additional lanes in the right-of-way will require ACHD Commission approval through the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan and the budget process. The Master Street Map is developed in partnership with ACHD land use partners. It presents a shared vision to meet future transportation needs for all modes. Regular modifications to the Master Street Map is envisioned in ACHD Policy Manual, Section 3111, to allow adaptations and modifications to be made, continuing to ensure future plans meet ACHD and its partner agencies' shared vision. The Master Street Map is also a key tool that is used for project development, scoping, development review, and it's directly tied to the ACHD Integrated 5-Year Work Plan and Capital Improvement Plan. Staff recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2324, approving the Master Street Map as amended. With this, I conclude my presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Edinson. Commissioners, any questions or comments, please, for Edinson? All right. Hearing none, we do have a few folks that have signed up to testify. So we will go ahead and hear from them. Ms. Spencer?
Yes, we
Zach?
have Zach from the City of Boise.
Zach Pipemeyer? Okay. Welcome, Zach.
Madam President, Commissioners, thank you. For the record, Zach Piepmeyer, Transportation Planner with the City of Boise. Thanks for considering this item tonight. I don't really have a formal presentation for the Commission, but just wanted to reiterate a few points regarding the City's position and make myself available for questions or any future discussion. As you're aware, the City submitted a request back in July that Edinson discussed in his presentation about the Master Street Map, requesting several updates, specifically the Warm Springs Avenue update, where we requested Wise Way to Eckert be reduced from an ultimate configuration of 5 lanes down to 3 lanes, and then correspondingly reduce the roundabouts in that section down to single-lane facilities. In that July letter, we called attention to those traffic impact studies that Edinson discussed just a moment ago. and want to bring to your attention that there were questions about some of the information that was presented in there, specifically in that 2016 TIS. In all future build-out scenarios, all intersections are anticipated to function at acceptable levels of service with a single-lane roundabout. And only the segments between the intersections were identified to have multiple lanes based on an ACHD policy related to peak hour travel lane volumes or travel direction volumes. That previous study further indicates that additional traffic analyses should be conducted as build-out occurs in the Barber Valley to confirm that 5-lane facility or multi-lane roundabouts are really needed. East of Eckert, Barber Valley is fairly built out, suggesting now might be that appropriate time for ACHD to reevaluate. Ultimately, the city feels that expanding this section to Warm Springs to 5 lanes may be unnecessary, and it will pose a significant barrier to hundreds of homes between those homes in the Boise River, the Greenbelt, several parks, and ultimately a future elementary school. While expanding the street may benefit motorists, we feel that the benefit will come at the expense of non-automobile modes. We understand that ACHD may have questions whether it can amend the master street map ahead of the city updating our specific area plan for Harris Ranch. But as was stated in the correspondence that we submitted today, we find no reason why the city must take action prior to ACHD amending their guiding document. The city is committed to amending the Harris Ranch specific area plan, and that process will require about 6 months to complete. We respectfully request that ACHD Commission move forward with the requested amendment to the master street map today. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Zach. Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, Madam President?
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, hi, Zach. This request was done in June, but that was before the build-out numbers came from Compass for 2050. So, having reviewed those, I'm sure you have reviewed those, does that make any change in your belief that there won't be enough growth to accommodate or to, need the 5 lanes?
Madam President, Commissioner Baker, I have not reviewed those specific numbers relative to the Barber Valley build-out, so I can't comment on that. But I believe, as I stated, build-out has achieved what we intended to east of Eckert, so we think now would be an appropriate time to review all traffic volumes going through Warm Springs.
Because these numbers show Boise is going to grow 62% more than they are now, and that the county itself will grow to 1.1 million. Obviously, it's not going to all be in the Barber Valley, but we are going to see an incredible amount of growth, way more than I think was even anticipated the last time we had build-out numbers. And you might believe that the build-out has happened in certain areas, but if it's anything like the area that I live on the West Bench, what's happening is any vacant lot is just being incredibly densified, and a lot of houses are being torn down to create more density. So, unless all these houses, you're assured that these houses will all stay exactly the same, I don't know how you can make the statement that everything is completely built out just simply with the growth that's anticipated, notwithstanding the growth that we already have. So, and this is just a planning document. This doesn't say that this is going to happen tomorrow, next week, or even 10 years from now. It just lets people know what's happening or what could happen.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have comment or question for Zach? All right, seeing none, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to address us. All right, next we will hear from Rob Stark. He's representing the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association. Mr. Stark?
Madam President, Commissioners, Rob Stark, 6865 East Warm Springs Avenue. I'm the Transportation Chair for the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association. Barber Valley Neighborhood Association is requesting that the Commission does not adopt Resolution 2324 and instead modify the resolution to adopt the request from the City of Boise to amend the master street map to change Warm Springs Avenue between Wiseway and Eckert Road from a dual-lane parkway to a single-lane parkway. BV&A initiated this effort to reevaluate whether 4 lanes on Warm Springs Avenue are needed. The neighborhood is concerned with pedestrian and bicycle safety and circulation on the existing 40-mile-per-hour 2-lane street, let alone the proposed 4-lane street. We believe ACHD should be planning for traffic calming options throughout the valley instead of the establishment of a through route that encourages Highway 21 traffic to cut through the valley to downtown Boise and points west. A through route and associated speed limits is contrary to the planning objectives of SPO1 and SPO2, especially as it relates to multimodal transportation and wildlife preservation. It is also inconsistent with the previous public investment in Highway 21 Boise River Bridge and development of the Federal Way routing from Highway 21 to downtown Boise. We believe that a 2-lane street section with appropriate bike and pedestrian facilities in the existing right-of-way would use taxpayer dollars wisely, create a safer corridor for pedestrians, cyclists, and wildlife, and still serve the current and future needs of residents throughout the county. The BV&A, homeowners, private developers, other engaged local stakeholders, and the city envision the Barber Valley as a safe, multimodal neighborhood with vehicle, pedestrian, bike, and transit facilities and crossings. The approach of planning for a dual-lane parkway is deeply flawed in pursuit of the long-term goal of a connected and safe community. Additionally, the developer's resources will be most efficiently leveraged to benefit the public if the master street map is amended to reflect a 2-lane minor arterial while preserving a 4-lane right-of-way. A dual-lane parkway will adversely affect the very nature and vision of Harris Ranch as being a pedestrian and family-friendly community designed to provide its residents open and easy access to the natural resources of the Barber Valley and other amenities that are part of the SBO1 plan. The Barber Valley is a very constrained part of the city of Boise. As far as growth is concerned, we can't grow to the east because
Maybe the light in the family room. Sorry.
we can't grow to the east because that is the wildlife management area that is owned by the state of Idaho. To the west is the Barber Pool Conservation Area, which is owned by Idaho Foundation for Parks and Land, which is a nature preserve. And then where the Barber Valley ends is Highway 21 going to Boise County. There isn't any room for more growth other than what's already been planned and accounted for in the Barber Valley. A dual-lane parkway will in effect bisect the Harris Ranch community and create an enormous barrier that will make safe crossings to and from the town center extremely difficult. A dual-lane parkway will reduce connectivity between 2 major community assets, the Greenbelt and the town center, including the planned elementary school. A dual-lane parkway will encourage higher rather than lower vehicle traffic speed, as well as encouraging more through traffic to and from Boise County, increasing the risk to bicycle, pedestrian, and wildlife crossing. A dual-lane parkway is not supported by traffic studies or projections. September 2019 traffic count on Warm Springs west of Eckert Road had a westbound morning peak of 347 vehicles and an eastbound afternoon peak of 355 vehicles, with a 24-hour total count of both directions of 7,000. That's far off from the projection from the 2016 traffic studies of 2,000 morning trips and 2,000 afternoon trips. There frankly isn't the room out here to build to come to that many trips. While we believe we understand ACHD's charter to accommodate future traffic projections, we disagree that a dual-lane parkway will be a reasonable future public investment. The Barber Valley east of Eckert Road is effectively fully developed now. A new traffic attributed to the additional construction in Harris Ranch will originate from the town center area and will have an extensive and efficient traffic grid to distribute vehicle trips. Boise County is not planned nor predicted to grow. Historic segment volumes indicate little to no change in traffic volumes coming west from Highway 21, with the investment by ITD and the taxpayers of the high-level bridge and to 250-foot right-of-way width of Highway 21 indicate a commitment and capacity well into the future for traffic coming west from Boise County. We would prefer that Warm Springs not become a through route between Boise County and downtown and points west, which would be encouraged by lane expansion. The availability and capacity of Highway 21, Federal Way, and Interstate 84 to take traffic around the perimeter, along with our requested internal change, will ensure that Warm Springs Avenue remains a livable street. Review of the 2016 traffic impact studies show conflicting information on whether a 4-lane street will be needed. The intersection analysis showed single-lane roundabouts are sufficient to meet the predicted traffic demand, even at full build-out. The forecasted increase in background vehicle trips appears to be high. The southeast end of the Barber Valley is already built out, and it is anticipated that background traffic on Warm Springs east of Eckert will not grow much beyond current levels. Emergency services will not suffer. The developments on the southeast end of the Barber Valley are already closer to the fire station on Highway 21 than the station at Park Center in Warm Springs. And other locations in the city show that single-lane roads are capable. Examples nearby our location are Boise Avenue and Amity Road. The BVNA has included this as an agenda topic at monthly membership meetings, and the discussion has revealed that an overwhelming majority of our neighbors do not want a dual-lane parkway. Nearly 90 parties took the time to voice their support to the city to make this amendment, and on short notice this week, 147 neighbors reached out to you. Because of our neighborhood's desire, BVNA reached out to make this happen by consulting with city planners, Barber Valley Development, ACHD staff, City Council President Clegg, and our ACHD District 1 Commissioner. All parties are in agreement that this change is desirable and consistent with SPO 1 and SPO 2 goals. We know the master street map is developed by ACHD in conjunction with the city and represents a shared vision to meet future transportation needs for all modes. We believe now is the time to reassess shared vision as well as the transportation needs for all modes, especially in a newer neighborhood with a master plan focused on density and walkability. As neighborhood volunteers tackling a complex interagency proposal, we are frustrated and concerned that our request may not be adopted by ACHD based on procedural or administrative confusion between the city and ACHD. As you know, your staff is recommending no action on the city's request to amend the MSM for Warm Springs. We are asking for your cooperation with all the parties who share the vision of a single-lane parkway: the residents, BVNA, the city, and the Harris family. To sum up, expanding Warm Springs Avenue comes at the expense of reduced comfort, safety, and convenience for all other modes of travel and will create a significant barrier to non-automobile travel through Harris Ranch. Specifically, access will be hindered to city parks, the Greenbelt, and a future elementary school. The Barber Valley is built out, and what is not built today has already been considered in existing traffic studies that have accounted for this growth. And in what seems to be a rarity in today's world, the residents, the neighborhood association, the city, and the developer all believe this is the correct path. The city took the first step down this path by making this request of ACHD. Does it really matter who takes the next step? You have the opportunity to take the next step towards a goal that has unanimous agreement instead of kicking the can down the road and asking another agency to go first. Please take that next step. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stark. Any questions, commissioners, for Mr. Stark? All right, hearing none, thank you very much. All right, the next individual that has signed up to speak to the commission is Gretchen Fors.
Yes. Good evening. Hi.
Good evening.
My name is Gretchen Fors, and my address is 7008 East Sky Bar Street, Boise, Idaho 83716. Good evening, commissioners and President, Madam President. I actually live in that southeast corridor of Warm Springs Road that Mr. Stark was talking about. So I live further down past Harris Ranch, and I would like to comment today that I would like to see the lane widen to 4 or 5 lanes, and for the city, for the ACHD to follow their plan that was put forth in 2007 when the first plat map was made. Because my concern is that they did make out the point that there is not much more room for growth in this area, but this area is also bordered on one side by heavily forested wildlife area, and also the Barber Valley Basin and the river on the other side. And so in the case of an emergency, if there were a large foothills fire, I'm very concerned about the ability for us to evacuate in a reasonable manner with one lane and one lane roundabout. I don't know if you've ever seen what happens in a one lane roundabouts are really good when traffic's coming from multiple directions, but when a lot of the traffic's flowing in one direction, it makes it almost impossible for those sideways to get in. And so if there was a situation where we were all trying to evacuate the valley, then it would be really, really congested and really hard to get over the Park Center Bridge. So that's my number one concern. The number two concern is, although I guess he said my house is closer to the fire station on Highway 21, it is very far. The fire station up in Warm Springs, every time they slow the traffic down, slows the response time to my house. And I also not only do I drive this road a lot, but I also have a bike, and I bike my kids to Barber Valley and to Bound Crossing and to school at Riverside. So while I am an avid cyclist and spend a lot of time on my bike, I would really appreciate for you to stick to the previous decision and keep the road widened. And so that's just, I just sometimes feel like the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association is telling you that everybody agrees with them, all the residents agree with them, and I want you to know that that's not true. They're just strong and powerful and have your ear, but there are plenty of residents who do not agree and really would like to see the road widened all the way down Park Center, all the way down Warm Springs, all the way to Highway 21, 5 lanes.
Thank you very much, Gretchen. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much for coming in this evening, or speaking to us this evening. All right, next on our list, Deanna Smith.
Good evening, Commissioners. Deanna Smith, 1208 East Jefferson Street. Before I talk specifically to Harris Ranch, I wanted to comment on the fact that I was dismayed to learn that you did not include your Bicycle Advisory Committee or your Pedestrian Advisory Committee in review of the Master Street Map. And I would really urge you and hope that in future updates and revisions, you would include them in that review. They would have, I think, a great deal to offer to that conversation. So regarding Barber Valley, this is something I'm intimately familiar with and very knowledgeable about because I went through the entire planning process for both SBO1 and SBO2 and continue to follow the efforts out there. And I have to say, I'm really pleased that the city is requesting that we return to what was the original planning vision for this area. There has never been any traffic study done out there that ever indicated the need for a larger cross-section than the 3 lanes that the city is requesting and the neighborhood's requesting, nor do I believe there ever will be. SBO1 and SBO2 are very unique land use documents that really do assure you what the future volumes are. And as for anything further east, that's why, as Ray pointed out so well and articulately, that's why we built the bridge to continue Highway 21 and take it up the Federal Way. Those are the future and current regional networks for that part of the city and both Boise and Ada counties. So there really is not a lot more growth that will come, and they know what it is because of SBO1 and SBO2. So I would just urge you to support the city's request and the neighborhood's request to return that road back to its original vision. I know it wasn't adopted that way, but that was only because ACHD insisted on it going to the design that's currently in the master street map. In response to the previous individual's comments, there's a lot there, but the one thing I would say, having worked on urban wildland interface for wildfires, I have never heard of, nor can I imagine a time when a road widening project would be considered a strategy for wildfire preparedness in the WUI. It's just not there. It's definitely an area that's in the WUI and an area that should be doing many things to address that. But widening a road is not one of them. So with that, I'll stand for questions and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Deanna. Commissioners, any questions for Deanna? All right, hearing none. Our next guest to address the commission is John Mooney.
Madam President, John Mooney, 7153 East Highland Valley Road. Good evening. I serve as the president of the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association, and as you know, I'm a member of your Bicycle Advisory Committee as well. Rob had our comments and did obviously very well representing our position. I wanted to kind of talk about a couple of things that came up in the other testimony. Commissioner Baker asked about build-out information of Zach, and in fact, our neighborhood is different because all of our development is controlled by specific plans from the city. So everything is already planned and built out. In the case of SPO2, which is the Barber Valley specific plan, we're at 72% build out as of last week. SPO1 is only at 55%, but all that build out will be in the grid of the interior of Harris Ranch, which is what we're talking about, the town center arterial right there. So your question, the question to you then is, will that new development inside that bypass, is that going to be distributed on the street grid, or are they all going to jump out onto that town center arterial? Well, that's the item tonight. Gretchen's comments about lots of residents in opposition is not based in fact. The 147 letters that we received and that you received swamping your inbox boxes, 2 of them were in opposition of the 147. So I think what this boils down to is policy and the TIS and the cost involved with the recommendation from staff. So it's really to you elected servants to decide, is it worth the additional public investment to do another TIS when everyone is already in agreement with this, as Rob implied. So you're basically asking the city to invest additional staff time, additional investment, public time, to do something that I think we could do right now. As Rob said, we could make this happen now, and it would be in the best interest of the public and the neighborhood. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mooney. Commissioners, any questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you. Ms. Spencer, do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission?
I do not have anybody else signed up.
All right, thank you. All right, Edmondson, would you like to comment on any of the information or concerns that you've heard?
Madam President, at this moment, staff doesn't have any comment.
All right, thank you. All right, commissioners, we have this item before us. I'd like to have a good discussion before we jump right to a motion, so I get the temperature of where everybody's coming from. Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, Madam President, thank you. I've seen this developing over the last 8 years. In fact, one of the first hearings, as I recall, Barber Valley Neighborhood Association, it was Brandy Wilson came in and said, you know, the association has been working on this for a long time, and she raised it with quite a number of different issues. We want this avenue to function as a collector through a neighborhood. We realize it used to be a state highway, but it needs to function as a healthy avenue through a neighborhood. And so we're asking that you update your master street map to reflect that. And after 4 years, we did finally in 2016 updated it. In the meantime, the neighborhood association, I'm just so impressed. John is the one who usually communicates to all of us about what's going on in the neighborhood association. Continues to work to figure out how can we have safe crossings as development has filled in as it's specifically been planned. People are asking, what about this crossing? What about this configuration? And so, well, there's still this segment of the road that is left as a 5-lane arterial, which is left hanging there because we've already determined that it's 3 lanes or less going east from Eckert Road. There is a shared vision, and I've never seen a neighborhood association work so hard to reach out to everybody, to try and get as much input, to hash out the differences, and then to take a position. You've handled some really tough issues with the fires, with the Harris Ranch North development coming in. You've grappled with all of those, and it's that process that's really, that makes sense. And now you're really focusing in, from what I can tell, you really would like to focus in on, so what is this avenue going to look like? You're like artists. You need to know what this looks like, and we're telling you, well, we can't decide on the size of the canvas. Well, frankly, we can. We know the canvas should be 3 lanes. That's what the city is requesting. And to me, it's almost dispositive that the city, which handles all of the emergency and all of the other land use issues, position is dispositive of this. And that we should update the master street map and not go back and forth, make the city go through some more hoops. The decision, I think, and I particularly hold kudos to Barber Valley, and I speak to other neighborhood associations, pointing out how hard you work to reach a consensus. And I think we can take this action tonight, just simply adopt the master street map with the city's specific request on this segment between Eckert and Wiseway.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
Commissioner May, we had a
Yes.
couple, we had somebody that wasn't able to get a hold of me in time, but an Ashley Ritchie would like to testify. We don't have a motion, so.
Right.
Making sure.
And no commissioner has indicated they have a question right now, so I'd be happy to have her address the
And it's
commission.
Wayne Ritchie.
Welcome.
Wayne, you'll need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes.
Yes. Could you just please state your address? Thank you, sir.
My name is Wayne Ritchie, 4137 Mountain View.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Wayne Ritchie. I know we've talked about this several times before, but it's something we need to resolve before it's too late. And that's punching Glenwood through Spalding Ranch. I know that we're getting down to the wire and they're going to build a park very shortly, but I think it's something that we could still get done. We could have a park and a road going through. I've also noticed that Idaho Transportation Department is conducting a survey on Facebook about Glenwood. Spalding Ranch, what they're doing right now, putting a park in, that's what happens when mayors and homeowners associations build roads instead of engineers. Putting Glenwood through will relieve a huge traffic congestion in this area. It's something that we've known has needed done for years. The county has already built the intersections. The streetlights are already there to put this road through. And it's something that was promised years ago to the homeowners in this area. So I know the city wants a park, and I know you guys want to put the Glenwood pushing it through to bed, but I really think we need to take another look at this. I think eventually it's something that will be done. Emergency vehicles use this corridor at least once an hour. We see an ambulance or a fire truck go by. So I know you want to close the master street map and all, but I really believe this is something we need to address still.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Ritchie? All right, hearing none. Thank you, sir. Ms. Spencer, anyone else to address the commission?
That is it.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, does anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, I do want to make a comment, and we certainly, Mr. Mooney hit the nail on the head. We certainly received an abundance of letters and emails and phone calls over the weekend. And one thread through those letters was that the data is outdated, and it's been 4 years since we've had the TIS. So my question would be, to take the temperature of the commission about having another traffic impact study, looking at the emergency services, you know, so that we are dealing with current data. We could, it's been suggested that we move forward with approving our master street map, but we pull the Warm Springs out, get the new studies, and you know, it may very well support everything that's being said, but we would be moving forward with current data. So I would like to know if any commissioner has a thought on that.
Madam President?
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, thank you. I know that there's been a number of traffic impact studies done here, and really up until the last one, and including the last one, there's been really no changes. So you know, we own the property for 5 lanes, but the right of way, but I certainly don't see the need to continue spending more taxpayer money, or, you know, unless the city of Boise wants to spend it. But there just hasn't been enough change in the area or the population, or as has been mentioned several times tonight, the possibility for further growth, unless we build the road to invite the additional traffic. So I would be negative on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your thoughts. Appreciate it. Any other commissioner? Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, quite frankly, I think this is a non-issue. The master street map is just a planning tool. It, you know, like I mentioned before, it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It happens at certain triggers and certain thresholds. So, you know, keeping it in as a 5, you know, build it as 3, which was done, you know, with expansion to 5 as necessary, I think is perfectly okay to leave it in just like that. It's not going to cause it to happen sooner or later. It's all based on the development that goes in that area. And, you know, it may never develop. The plan may be built out the way exactly the plan is in terms of the houses. Then again, things change and property owners change, and somebody might come in, buy a bunch of houses and want to put up a bunch of, you know, 3-4-story townhouses like happening all over, densify the area, and then it will be needed. But I think right now it's kind of a non-issue. So I would just be inclined to move forward with the master street map the way it's been presented. And if the city of Boise wants to do a TIS to show something different, well, they can go ahead and do that. But I don't know if we necessarily have to hold anything up for that to happen.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Baker. Any other comments or questions?
Madam President,
Commissioner Hanson.
I would just draw lessons from the Beacon Road, because the exact same arguments were made. Well, we already have the right of way for 5. Why don't we just leave it? But since we've done that, look what's happened. The neighborhood, the city, they have planned out what's going to be used in that right of way, including a horse path and multi-use pathways. So very much, we decided this is the canvas for the Beacon Light Road, and the people got involved and engaged, and we now know what that corridor is going to start to look like. And they took ownership over it. But if we left it in limbo, that couldn't have happened. So I think this is the same sort of situation. We need to say, yes, this is what it's going to be, so that they can move to the next step and say, this is what this avenue is going to look like, and they can start using that right-of-way space, or that public right-of-way, for appropriate things that are consistent with the land use in the area. So I think the Beacon Light example is really, really good. And we experienced a similar, desire on the part of those neighborhoods who urged us move forward with changing this in the master street map so that we can do the next level of planning. And I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Well, there doesn't seem to be an appetite into pursuing an additional traffic impact study. So, Commissioners, you have this item before you.
Madam President, I would make the motion that we adopt the master street map with the addendum requested by the city of Boise, that the segment of Warm Springs between Eckert Road and Wise Way be designated as 3 lanes rather than 5.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, we have a motion. Is there a second?
What Jim is proposing and what he said as far as comparing it to Beacon Light isn't quite accurate from as far as my memory goes about Beacon Light. We preserved for, was it 5? And building for 3, which allowed what he said to happen. And what Jim, I think what you just made a motion for is even more constrained than what we did for Beacon Light. And I wouldn't be at all opposed to have the language the same as what we did for Beacon Light, because that does give us the leeway way down the road if things change drastically to go ahead and fix the decision and widen the road if it's absolutely necessary. But if we...
Madam President?
Yeah, thank you.
So you're speaking to the option, Commissioner Goldthorpe. Thank you. Commissioner Baker?
Yeah, Mr. Goldthorpe, that's exactly what's in the master street map now. It's built, at the future, it's preserved for 5 for the future when the thresholds are met that require it to be built out. Otherwise, it stays the way it is now, which is 1 lane roundabout and 2 travel lanes. So
you have that preservation of right-of-way in there.
yeah, it's already in there. So, Madam President, I would make a substitute motion that we approve the master street map as presented by staff.
All right, we have a substitute motion. Is there a second? All right, hearing none, motion dies for lack of a second. Commissioner Hanson?
Did Commissioner Goldthorpe second to my motion?
I will now, thank you.
Okay, hold on. What did you say, Commissioner Goldthorpe? I didn't hear you.
I will now.
Okay. Commissioner Hanson, can you please restate your motion?
Just to approve the master street map with the request from the city of Boise. It's contained in their letter. It specifically says to modify the ultimate build-out configuration of Warm Springs Avenue between Wiseway and Eckert Road from 5 to 3 lanes. I'm just taking the language directly out of the city of Boise letter.
All right, so Commissioner Goldthorpe, that's the motion that you have seconded, correct?
Sure, thank you.
All right. Commissioners, we have...
Madam President?
Discussion. Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, so Commissioner Goldthorpe, you're okay with not even preserving for 5?
Already preserved.
Right, but I mean, we're basically...
We're not
forestalling any expansion at all.
One at a time.
Well, I'm fine with what I seconded because I don't think that we're going to be selling it back to the developer or anyone else either.
Okay, well, Madam President, I'm not going to vote for the motion because I don't know what's going to happen 30 years from now or 40 years from now, and I don't want to, forestall any issues in the future. I think right now we've got the best of both worlds, and, if we go ahead and do this, then we're basically saying this will never be 5 lanes, even if there is the necessity for it. And so I'm not going to vote aye on this.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Baker. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Commissioners, you have a motion before you. We'll go ahead and call for the decision. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
No. Motion fails.
All right, Madam President, I would move approval of the master street map as presented by staff.
All right. And is there a second? Commissioner Arnold?
I'll second the motion, but I'm not sure I'm going to support the motion when it comes down to a vote. I have two concerns, if I could.
For discussion?
Yeah, I have two concerns.
Yes, please, Commissioner Arnold.
I do think since we have preserved the right-of-way for 5 lanes for Warm Springs, that we should continue to preserve that right-of-way. I don't know that it'll ever be built out to 5, but if we remove it, then my question for legal is, are we going to have to vacate the property that we have preserved for 5 lanes? If Mr. Price wouldn't mind answering that question.
Mr. Price.
And then I have a second concern after he answers that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Price?
Madam President and Commissioner, Steve Price, General Counsel, for the record. Well, we don't have to vacate it. What we'll do is, I mean, we would be holding that as right-of-way, but in the event that, I don't think we have to vacate it. And I don't know in terms of reimbursement on any other financial transactions that, you know, with the community improvement district or anything like that, whether there would need to be a refund. But for ACHD, we could continue to hold the additional right-of-way for the 5 lanes, and we could take vacation requests as they come in over time.
Okay. If
All right. Thank you.
If I may continue, Madam Chair.
Yes. Yes.
The second concern I have with the master street map is that it appears that everyone completely ignored the neighborhood at Glenwood and Mountain View and didn't even discuss the concerns raised by Mr. Ritchie. That extension has been on the books for, what, at least 30 years, dating back to the Bench Valley study. So if we're going to do any additional traffic analysis on Warm Springs, which is being discussed, why wouldn't we do the same for the Glenwood extension before we just take it out altogether?
I don't believe there was any appetite to doing any further studies. I put that out there, and nobody seemed to agree that additional studies were necessary.
Madam Chair, just to follow up, I would be willing to go along with that if it applies to both of those items.
Madam President,
Commissioner Baker.
I don't understand what Commissioner Arnold's point was.
I think the point
Commissioner
is,
Arnold, could you restate?
well, the point is, we have at least one commissioner that wants to remove Warm Springs or change it from 5 lanes to 3. We have another neighborhood that wants to keep something on the master street map that is proposed to be taken off. So treat both neighborhoods the same. Before you make either of those changes, do some additional traffic studies. One would be determining whether a project is necessary or not for the Glenwood extension, and then the other one would be what's necessary for Warm Springs, 5 lanes or 3. But treat both neighborhood requests the same.
Madam President?
Commissioner Baker.
The issue with the Spalding Ranch, however, though, is that it's a historical property. That barn is what was put on the National Register. And the road that was proposed to go through the Spalding Ranch, or the Karen property at the time, was that the vibrations from the traffic would cause the collapse of the barn. And now the city owns the property, and I don't think there was ever any appetite on their part to do anything other than maintain it as a historic property, the barn, and then make it into a park. And I do recall the Bench to Valley Transfer Station study because I was on the Boise City Council at the time. The whole thing happened, it was as a result of Curtis Road getting punched down the hill and that whole brouhaha from that. And so we on the City Council said to the Highway District at the time, you need to do a comprehensive study about all of the roads that could go to Chinden on the Bench and look at Cloverdale, look at 5 Mile, look at Maple Grove, and perhaps the Glenwood. And what came out of that study was, and Curtis. And what came out of the study was that Curtis Road would be punched down the hill, Maple Grove would be extended down the hill. I think Cloverdale already did go to Chinden, and I can't recall about 5 Mile, but I also believe that connection had to be made as well. And then after all those connections were made, then go back, look at Glenwood, see if it was necessary to punch that through to Cole. I don't believe that study was ever done. But with the creation of the historic property and now the fact that the city owns it, I don't see how that could ever happen.
Just
All
to
right,
follow
thank
up,
you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
believe she is correct. That follow-up study on Glenwood Street was never done. So it should be done since it was part of the Bench Valley study, and the neighbors up there have had this expectation for 30 years that something was going to happen there. So I
Madam
think we should do the
President, but
study.
there are other neighbors involved. From the
Commissioner
West
Baker.
Bench. Yeah, there were other neighbors involved from the West Bench Neighborhood Association that wants to see the Spalding Ranch developed as a park. So, I mean, the neighborhood is not monolithic in that at all.
And neither is Warm Springs.
Thank you.
Yeah, it pretty much is, but.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hanson, in your motion, I understand the 3 lanes. The thing I'm having trouble with is nobody knows for sure if we're going to need to do something out there. I don't see where just preserving. There's nothing on the books right now. There's no plans. Nothing's funded. But to have it constrained to 3 lanes, but we maintain the right-of-way, it's just an insurance policy should something happen down the road, like Commissioner Baker alluded to. So that's kind of where I'm a little bit struggling with.
Yeah, Madam President, I think there's probably a misinterpretation. By adopting the city's language for ultimate configuration still leaves the right-of-way, as Mr. Price says, in ACHD's hands. And I think the lessons can be learned from the Beacon Light area. It's still in ACHD's hands, but the configuration is for 3 lanes. And so that opens up discussions about what do we want to do in that right-of-way between the city and the neighborhood. And the same thing is going on in the area to the east of Eckert. It's constrained to 3 lanes, but ACHD owns the right-of-way. It was a wide right-of-way. In fact, there's even a segment where there was a way station or something that ACHD owns and still owns because it's an old state highway. But that's allowed, and there is conversation about how to use that right-of-way. Should the city, landscape it? What about the crossing? So there's all kinds of things. Like I said, I think the metaphor of the painting is happening over there because they already know what it looks like. And so they're figuring that out. And ACHD, it's public, owns it. In fact, that was a key component of our discussion when we were talking about the new park right up by the bridge. There's a new park that's going in, and it's going in along there. Is there going to be parking? How will that work? So I think clearly the assumption is that it's just the master street map configuration. By saying that, then you still retain, the public still retains the right of way, And the conversations can now happen around what do you want to do in that right of way and how will that work? And it's an area that many of us are so intimately familiar with, and the houses are getting all built out there, so people want to know what's going to happen. So I think it's important that they then start that process of having those conversations. They start painting out what's the best thing, and ACHD is a partner. We like to cooperate with our fellow agencies, and so I think this is a classic opportunity. Since everybody's requesting it from the city and the neighborhood association and the developer, that we can then move to the next step of deciding what to do in that right of way and how well it figures and configures and supports all the different uses in that area.
All right, thank you. All right, right now we don't have any motion, correct?
Yeah, no, my motion.
Your motion, did you get a second?
Yeah, Rebecca seconded it.
Oh,
I
Rebecca
seconded the motion for discussion, but that doesn't mean I'm going to support it.
Great.
Okay, so we do have a motion before us to adopt the plan as presented. So we will go ahead and call for the decision on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Opposed?
No.
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 All right. We're right back.
Madam Chair, I'll make my motion again, perhaps after this additional discussion. I would move to adopt the master street map and include the City of Boise's request that the ultimate build-out configuration of Warm Springs Avenue between Wiseway and Eckert Road from 5 to 3 lanes and retain the right-of-way, preservation of the right-of-way. I'll add that in my motion.
Second it again.
All right. All right. We have a motion before us. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
All right, we'll go ahead.
I'm not sure I
think
understand
Commissioner
how
Arnold.
this motion is any different than the last one Commissioner Hanson made.
It's not.
The only difference is I've clarified that ACHD retains the title to the right-of-way.
And that wasn't in the original one.
It looks like Mr. Price is.
So, Madam President.
Hold on.
is that-
I think hold on. I think Mr. Price is coming back up to the podium. I didn't remember that language in there. I guess we could have a read back. Mr. Price.
Oh, Madam President, Commissioners, I was just stretching my legs. No, the motion's before you. It's properly before you, and I think the motion's the same, except Commissioner Hanson did qualify that that ACHD would retain the right-of-way.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Price.
And Madam President, that basically preserves it for 5 lanes, right? Mr. Hanson?
It would appear, yeah.
It would be similar to Beacon Light Road. Some future commission in 10, 20, 30 years, if ACHD still owns the right-of-way and the city and the neighborhood agree, yeah, if ACHD continues to hold it. But the configuration in the master street map, just like the configuration in the master street map on Beacon Light and on Warm Springs east of Eckert, would be 3 lanes.
Yes, but on Beacon Light, it's preserved for 5.
Madam President, if I may.
Mr. Price.
Maybe to help the commission out through this this issue is maybe the direction would be to go as part of the motion, we can include a note within the master street map that it's preserved for 5 lanes, but any future configuration would be for a 3-lane road. And I think that's what I'm hearing through a variety of you when you talk. I think that would be consistent with what the city is requesting, and that way we would be preserving 5 lanes, but the ultimate configuration would not exceed the 3 lanes as requested by the City of Boise.
All right, thank you, Mr. Price.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Hanson, that seems to be consistent with the motion that you made.
Mr. Price said it with different words. I appreciate it.
Okay, all right.
Madam
Thank
Chair.
you very much. Further discussion, Commissioner Arnold?
Well, I agree with Commissioner Baker that if we're preserving for 5 lanes, but his motion sets it at 3, so I'm not going to vote for this motion either.
The configuration is at 3 with the preservation, right-of-way preservation, right, for 5.
But it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to preserve it for 5 lanes if we're saying it's never going to be more than 3. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I didn't hear that it's never going to be any more than 3.
Hey, Madam President?
Other.
Commissioner Baker?
Yeah, this is a distinction without a difference. Right now, it's 3 lanes with a build out of 5 when it's warranted. I mean, that's basically the motion, as I understand it, if it preserves for 5 lanes, which Mr. Hanson said it just was. So,
Madam Chair,
Anyway.
I think that the difference is, Commissioner Baker,
Arnold,
that
final thought?
Commissioner Baker, I think the difference is he's saying that it's not going to be 3 lanes, more than 3 lanes ever. I think that's the difference between what you just said and what his motion is.
Okay, well, I didn't hear that.
I think
I'm going to go ahead and call for the decision. We've got a motion before us. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
no.
No.
Okay, motion carries. All right, next item. Award the construction bid for Eagle Road, Amity Road to Victory Road, request for approval. We will hear from Ryan Cutler. Welcome back, Brian.
Yeah, thank you again, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm going to share my screen for my presentation. Ryan Cutler, Senior Project Manager, here tonight with the decision briefing for the Eagle Road and Amity Road intersection project. Some of these items may look familiar to you, Commissioners, as we have discussed them before. I will go through them briefly to make sure we cover all the items necessary. As you remember, we currently have a single-lane roundabout that is at the intersection of Eagle and Amity Road. That was constructed in 2012 and was anticipated when it was built to be built for approximately 10 years before it needed to have an upgrade. On the northwest corner of this intersection, a development application came through the city of Meridian in 2016 for development, which included the construction of a dual-lane roundabout as part of the development agreement with Ada County Highway District. That development agreement was approved by the Commission in 2017, which required that completion of the roundabout to be done in the summer of 2018. There was then a time extension that was asked of the Highway District, which was granted for completion of the roundabout in fall of 2019. During this time frame, the Highway District was moving along with the design of the roadway section of Eagle Road from Amity to Victory to correspond with the development and build out of this dual lane roundabout. Ultimately, the roundabout was never expanded as the development agreement with ACHD was terminated in 2019 between the ACHD and the developer. This is just a quick timeline that we showed at some of our public involvement meetings for the Eagle Roadway widening project. This goes back all the way to 2018, showing the opportunity that the public, the city, and those around had the opportunity to be able to comment on this project. Here we are now at the bottom of the screen in 2021, preparing ourselves for construction. So as you can see, Madam President and Commissioners, this has been taking place for several years now in preparation for this construction time now. Just a quick reminder of what's going on in the area as part of this plan. This is the roadway section on Eagle Road. Both sides of the road will have 10-foot multi-use pathways. Also a mid-block crossing that I'm circling here with my cursor at the canal, where there's multiple crossings that take place with people going between the two neighborhoods. So we've put a pedestrian crossing in that area, and a roundabout, a dual lane roundabout for access from the neighborhoods at Eagle and Zaldia. This is the design that has moved forward for the dual lane roundabout at the intersection of Eagle and Amity. We'll have RRFB at all of the crossings. There are, and also future pedestrian connection between, or future pedestrian connections to the east, south, and west as changes are made in that area. Also, you'll note here where my cursor is, there's a south bypass lane for vehicles traveling south and then to the west. Before you now, Commissioners, is part of a presentation that we give about roundabouts versus signals. And I wanted to point out here, this is the vehicle conflict points between a roundabout and a signal. If you'll note on the left of your screen there, with the roundabout, there are only 8 conflict points as opposed to a signal where there are 16. This is just pointing out in certain locations such as this, in the right context, a roundabout is a viable option and is also a more safe option than a regular traditional signal. Along with that, we have noted, and it has been stated by FHWA, that roundabouts versus signals, when you have a roundabout, all crashes decrease by 48%, and fatal injury crashes go down by 78%. We see a large difference in the amount of overall number of vehicle crashes, but also the fatalities in those crashes. This is also pointing out the pedestrian safety of crossings at a roundabout. With pedestrians at a regular signal, there's 16 conflict points, and at a single lane roundabout, there's eight conflict points. The other items I'd like to note on this is that when you can see, based on the graph on the side here, that the miles per hour the vehicle is traveling obviously has impact on how that interaction with the pedestrian takes place. Noted on this graph is that when you're going 40 miles an hour, there's an 80% chance of death if hit by a vehicle. That decreases by 50% down to 40 when you're going 30 miles an hour, and so on. Just for reference, currently the speed limit on Eagle Road is 45 miles an hour. Potentially it could be decreased to 40, but as you can see, it hits into that 40-mile-an-hour range here, where fatalities are more likely. Currently, our design speed for the new design of the roundabout is at 27 miles an hour at its highest, which puts us in this lower category here, which makes it, we feel, a much safer option for people crossing at this location. There's been some discussion about the multi-use path and how it connects and crosses over the local roadways, turning onto Eagle Road. We pointed this out that through studies, it's indicated that when the roadway is of a higher speed, such as Eagle Road, as you come to a crossroad with the local roadway, if you will separate those crossings there, it gives the opportunity for the vehicles and the pedestrians to see each other a little bit better. The curve of the 10-foot pathway as it comes to the local roadway also allows pedestrians and cyclists to slow down to be able to see vehicles better, and also for vehicles to be able to see the pedestrians better. The conflict with the vehicles and the pedestrians is also pulled away from the corner of the intersection and back away from the roadway. And it also limits the, as you've probably seen, or we've all had happen before, when a car pulls up to an intersection, often they park or sit and stage all right across the crosswalk, which makes it difficult for the pedestrian to either have to go in front of the car or behind the car to make it through that crossing. When we pull this away from the intersection, that allows that conflict to be pulled away from the roadway and for a car to be able to stage in front of the crosswalk as it's preparing to go out into Eagle Road. Also, as a vehicle turns off of Eagle Road in this instance and it approaches the crosswalk, it allows the vehicle to see head on the individual that may be ready to cross the road instead of it being in a blind spot as they're turning the corner. As you're aware, that development agreement with the property owner on the northwest corner ended in November, which required the Ada County Highway District to move forward in designing the roundabout, which we started to do this last March of 2020. That included the City of Meridian and the land group, which is the representative of the property owner on the northwest corner, to join in and help us in our design of this project. Also included some analysis by our own ACHD traffic team. We completed that this last September. On October 7th, this project was put out to bid, and Central Paving was the apparent low bidder on this project. It is wanted to note that with Central Paving being the low bidder, that bid did come in 21% below our engineer's estimate and 13% below our budget. So we were excited about the bid that was received on this project. We're here tonight for a commission bid approval, and that includes both the roundabout and the roadway section in this project. Also of note, the utilities that need to be moved for this project have an NTP of November 9th. So they are already preparing to move forward, and Idaho Power has already contracted and awarded their contract to a team to move their utilities, and they anticipate starting here in about 2 weeks. And we anticipate our construction NTP, if awarded tonight, to start on November 19th of 2020. Just to give you an idea about some fiscal implications on this project, taxpayer dollars spent to date, that includes the design of both the roadway and the roundabout and all of the right-of-way to do so, is around $1 million. If there was any change to design in this project to look at an intersection, more traditional signalized intersection, we estimate that might be around $300,000 to contract a design team to go ahead and do that. We've also looked at the new bid escalation. Currently, our bid is at $6.7 million. We anticipate that any change in this project might push it out to 2024 for the new construction date. By our escalation numbers, that would increase the bid potentially to $7.6 million, assuming the bid, the new design, came in at the same amount that we have for the roundabout now. That's about a 13% increase from the dollar amount we have for our bid today. So spent to date plus redesign and potential project bid differences moving into the future. Overall, any changes to this project could potentially cost the taxpayers an additional $2.2 million. At this time, recommendation from staff is that we approve the bid and award the contract to Central Paving Company and move forward with this construction project. I would stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Commissioners, any questions or comments for Ryan?
Yes, Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Ryan, would it be possible to accommodate the neighbors and city's request for a redesign and a change order with regards to the Dartmoor and Rome intersection and get an engineer stamp for it?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I believe so. Obviously, we're prepared to move forward with this construction of this project. Change orders are possible as long as they don't get very large in nature. But I feel like some minor adjustments would be possible at the intersections of those two roadways that you mentioned. I would propose that we do those designs and study them a little bit more outside of this meeting as opposed to trying to design it during this meeting. But I do think, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that it's possible.
Thank you
very much. Very good. Very good. Then you can bring that back to us, Ryan. That seemed to be a consensus of concern on those two crossings. Any other comments or questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Commissioner Goldthorpe's comments. And Ryan, just in general, you put up the data on roundabouts generally, but when you have a free running right turn on a roundabout, does that defeat the purposes? Because in fact, when you're going right and you can avoid the roundabout going around, you actually do run into acceleration. So they're accelerating when they come out of that turn and then face a pedestrian crossing. Does it undermine that? my main concern with this particular design is that free running right turn, which I can't see. It wasn't in this set of documents. There it is. That free running right turn, because it's an opportunity to accelerate, and the whole idea of a roundabout is you actually have to decelerate in order to maneuver around to get that.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, great question. Obviously, our team analyzed this extensively as we went through the design of this. You'll note as you come south to west, there's a little bit of deflection and curve in each direction. Part of the reason we did that is to require vehicles to slow down a little bit, even if they're in that bypass lane. We also added in the flashing beacons at the crosswalks to make sure that vehicles can see that somebody is in that area preparing to cross. The difference between a roundabout, even a roundabout with a slip lane or a bypass lane, is that the area that a person has to cross is very short before they have a refuge and can move on to the next area, which is the case here. A bypass lane there, likely they're crossing about 12 feet before they're into a refuge area. Then they would cross an additional amount of lanes where then they have a refuge area, and then they cross the final segment. So there's many areas for the pedestrian to find safety in that area, in the roundabout, as opposed to a signal where, you know, you push the button and then you would cross all the way across the intersection. So I agree with your statement that we're expecting vehicles to, by bypassing the roundabout, to have some acceleration, but we also expect coming into that there will be some deceleration to make that corner as it has been designed to slow vehicles down a little bit, and then to have them speed up after they get past the second pedestrian crossing on the west leg. It still requires people, obviously, to pay attention when they're driving. But again, it's that shorter crossing distance and the flashing beacons that we have there that we anticipate will be a benefit for the pedestrians.
One follow-up then.
All right, go ahead.
In fact, they have to go to two separate islands when they do that. So when you, do you anticipate that when you do the rapid flashing beacon, would it be for the whole distance? Or would it be for the, you'd have to push it, go across the first third, push it, go across the next third, push it, go across the next third. How would that work?
Yeah, Commissioner, President May and Commissioner Hanson, we anticipate it to be in segments, not push and across the entire length of the crossing. It is in segments, usually one half and then the second half in this instance. So there should be plenty of time during that flashing phase for somebody to cross half the intersection to be in a refuge area and then to cross the second half on the next flashing area.
Well, given that if you do have a motion with an opportunity down the road to do a change order, I would like us to really look at that, given those issues, whether it's really warranted from a pedestrian standpoint to have that slip lane. Thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Hanson. Ryan, can we hone in on a date for those possible alternatives for the two crossings, the 18th of November? Could you have something back to us for that meeting?
Madam President, yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate it. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Ryan. Ms. Spencer, do we have anyone that would like to address the commission?
We do not have anybody signed up.
All right, thank you very much. All right, commissioners, you have this item before you.
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
unless you wish for greater amounts of discussion, I would like to make a motion.
We could knock it around a little bit if you'd like.
Well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That we approve the bid with instructions to staff to include an engineered stamped change order regarding the redesign and the location of the multi-use pathway at Dartmoor and Rome.
Is there a second?
Kent, if you include a reevaluation of the slip lane, I'll second it.
Okay, and a reevaluation of the slip lane.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion with a second.
Madam President?
Discussion, Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion. The worst thing that ever is done is to try to redesign something from the dais. If we want the staff to come with a change, potential suggestions for some changes, that's fine, but I'm not going to vote for anything from the dais that requires them to do something, we don't have the expertise to do that.
I would agree with that. My request of Ryan was to bring back some possible alternatives for those two crossings, and I think that's more in keeping, but we don't want a hamstring. Commissioner Arnold?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a substitute motion that we award the bid to the low bidder and proceed forward with the contract with instructions for staff to come back to us with potential alternatives for those two crossings and a potential change order for us to be decided upon at a later date.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion with a second. Discussion.
Madam President, I'll support that
Commissioner
as well.
Collister.
Thank you.
Yes, I like the language in that one. Thank you very much, Commissioner Arnold. All right, no further discussion? All right, we have a motion before us. I will call for the decision. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Ryan, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you too. All right, commissioners, that's that. Public communications. Anyone signed up, Ms. Spencer?
Commissioner May, we do not have anybody signed up for public communications.
All right, so that really is that. All right, commissioners, thank you very much. We stand adjourned. We will see you all tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
What are you guys going to do?